everyone, today I'm going to be continuing the reading of Blaire Wilson's second book by Jennifer Castle. Chapter 14, Officially Friends? As soon as I walked into class on Monday morning, everyone wanted to know how things had gone at Helping Hands. So Miss Lewis had everyone sit down on the rug for Monday Madness. "Tell us about Saturday, Blaire," she said. I looked at Eli and thought of the sauce that had been ruined last week, but then I thought about what Mom had said in the kitchen. Everyone was watching for my reaction. "It was great," I said. I told the class how much everyone appreciated the sauce and how many people were happy to have something that was made from fresh local produce. "We could have given away another 100 jars," I said. After Monday Madness, Eli and I were face to face at our desks. "I'm glad it went well," he said. "It didn't," I answered coldly. "We didn't have enough for everyone. Abby didn't even get a jar because of you." He frowned confused. "How is that because of me?" "You messed up the sauce day with all your video stuff." Eli's face fell. "You're the one who had knocked into your mom," I sighed, shaking my head. "Oh, everyone else was helping and you weren't." Abby was so disappointed. I turned away from Eli without saying another word. At home that afternoon, I moved Penelope and Dash's paddock to an enclosure by the orchard. That would give them a chance to graze on different grasses, which was good for their tummies. It was also a way to put Dash to work doing something super useful, eating poison ivy and other plants in places we didn't want. Goats aren't allergic to poison ivy the way people are. "That's the cutest weed whacker ever," a voice said from behind an apple tree. "Hi, Marco," I called. "Doing your thinking here today?" "Yes, indeed," he replied from where he was sitting against a tree. "And I was just thinking about your big project. How did everyone like this sauce?" "They liked it, or at least the ones who got some did. We didn't have enough for everyone." I walked over to Marco and sat down across from him. "I barely made a difference at all." "How many jars of sauce did you give out?" Marco asked. 76. Marco shook his head and smiled. 76 jars sounds like a big difference. Besides, it's the smallest amounts that become the biggest amounts." "What do you mean?" "When I was growing up in Mexico, my father owned a construction company. He scheduled 1 hour every week for himself." "Do you know what he did during that time?" I shook my head. "He did house repairs for people who could not afford to pay him. As soon as I got old enough, he let me work with him. That was how I learned to make old things new again. But we only had 1 hour each week, and often it wasn't enough time to fix a problem." I nodded. I knew how he felt. "So every week we went back. We kept working on the same problem until it was fixed. Sometimes it would take 2 weeks, and sometimes it would take 2 months. However long, my father did not give up." Marco was quiet for a while. I thought about the 76 families we had helped with our sauce. "There is no helping that's too small, Blaire," Marco said, standing up. "Maybe you have to go back and do some more, but that doesn't mean the first bit didn't count." "I hadn't thought of it that way," I said quietly. "Thanks, Marco." "You're welcome. You see, a different perspective can make all the difference." With that, Marco stood up and brushed off the seat of his jeans. Suddenly, I jumped up too. "Marco, wait!" I cried. "From my perspective, I see poison ivy you've been sitting in." Dash wandered over and started eating the clump Marco had been sitting on. "So now you show up," Marco said to the goat. "Meh," Dash said with his mouth full. Marco looked at me and we both started laughing. At school the next morning, Miss Lewis announced that Eli had something he wanted to share with the class. He glanced nervously at me before going over to the class computer. I hadn't said a word to him since the day before. After a moment, a picture came up on the smart board at the front of the room. White letters against a dark red background. This is Operation Awesome Sauce. OMG. Was Eli actually going to show us the video he made during prep day and sauce day? That was pretty much the last thing I wanted to see. The video started with some shots of the Bluefield Helping Hand Center from the outside. Then there were images of the food pantry shelves and the mostly emptied refrigerator where fresh produce is stored. When had Eli gotten those shots? Next were some things he had shot from our prep day. There were the chickens and Penny and Dash, and then everyone pulling carrots and picking zucchini. Dad was explaining how we got donations of mason jars from the local hardware store. The way the video was edited, it was clear that lots of people had come together to make this project happen. Then the screen faded to black. When it lit up again, there was a girl on the screen. Just like when I watched the Room Revolutions video. It took me a second to realize that girl was me. I was peeling carrots, talking about how I'd come up with the idea for Operation Awesome Sauce. Eli had added music, which made what I was saying seem even more dramatic. Then the video cut away to a shot of me and Abby walking through the orchard on prep day. You could only see the back of our heads, but I could tell it was us. Abby reached out and took my hand. The rest of the video showed the kids in our class picking and chopping the vegetables, and Mom stirring the pots of simmering tomatoes in the restaurant kitchen. The video ended with another shot of the Helping Hands Center. Eli zoomed in on a family walking out of the building holding bags of groceries. The final screen said, "The Bluefield Helping Hands Center needs more helping hands. Let's get more canned food to our neighbors who need it." Below that was the website and phone number of the center. When it ended, we all sat there for a few seconds. The room was totally silent. Wow, I thought. Eli is really good at this video stuff. I started clapping, and everyone else joined in. "Awesome video, bro," someone said. "That was epic," Amadi added. Eli shrugged, but he also smiled. For the first time since he came to our school, Eli wasn't sitting alone in the cafeteria. All the boys in our class squeezed into his regular table at lunch, asking him questions about how he had made the video. His face lit up as he was talking, and the other boys were laughing. When we came outside for recess, the boys invited him to play basketball with them. But he shook his head and went to sit in his usual spot by a tree near the edge of the playground. "Come on, Blaire," Thea said, tugging at my jacket sleeve. "Race you up the spider web." "I'll be there in a minute," I told her. Thea went off to join our other friends, and I headed over to the tree. When Eli looked up and saw me, he actually rolled his eyes. "What do you want?" I took a deep breath. "I want to apologize." Eli looked surprised. "You were right," I said softly. "Spilling the sauce was at least partly my fault. I'm sorry I got so mad." Eli stared at me for a few seconds. "Thanks," he finally said. "I'm sorry my videoing got in the way." I pointed to the ground next to him, asking if I could sit. He shrugged. He shrugged again. I was learning that a shrug was Eli's language for "yeah, let's talk more." So I sat down and said, "Your video was really great." "Thanks," Eli murmured. "I had no idea you went to Helping Hands." "Before I went, I didn't really get how many people needed help." "Yeah, me neither." We were quiet for a moment. I picked some dirt out of the sole of my sneaker, and Eli started tugging at a weed in the grass. "So what are you going to do with that video now?" I asked. "Are you going to show it to Eileen?" "I don't know," Eli said. I guess so, but I didn't make it for anyone besides our class. Really, I just made it for myself and for my... He stopped and bit his lip. And for my dad, he continued. Then he took a deep breath. It sounded shaky, as if he were about to cry. He died last year. Oh, I said, not sure what to say next. Gosh, Eli, that's awful. That's why we moved here, to be near my mom's family. You said you made the video partly for him, I said. What did you mean? Well, Eli began, tugging at the weed again. He's the one who taught me how to do all that. We, made videos together all the time. We'd post them on a private account and send them around to our online friends. We had a whole group of people on a message board who were like us, who loved making videos. That's really neat, I said. Do other kids know about your dad? No, it's not like I'm going to get a t-shirt that says, my dad died, feel sorry for me. Miss Lewis and the principal know, though. You must miss him a lot, Eli nodded. All the time. You know what's weird? This is the first place I've made a video since he got sick. And the first one I made without him. Really? Yeah. I just started taking videos of Bluefield when I was driving around with my mom, pretending I was showing our new town to my dad. That was another thing me and my dad used to do before he got sick. We moved around a lot for his job, and we'd get to know the town by driving all over and taking video of it. Eli paused, staring at the sky. I thought of him and his dad exploring those other towns they lived in. Then, Eli continued, at your farm, I pretended I was showing him the kids in my new class and what we were doing for Operation Awesome Sauce. I can't imagine moving around that much, I said, finally, telling him what I'd been thinking since he first arrived. I've only ever lived here. Wasn't it hard to leave your friends every time? He shrugged. I never really had any friends. Wherever we went, I knew we'd only be there for maybe a year, so it seemed pointless to try. My dad was my best friend anyway. Eli tugged really hard on the weed this time, and it finally popped out of the ground. We both looked at it in his open palm. If you're going to stay in Bluefield, I said, you can make friends now. I'm not very good at it, he said, then looked right in my eyes. I'm not good at being part of things. You are part of Operation Awesome Sauce. I still feel different from everyone else, Eli said. Like, no one really gets what it's like to be me, I guess. I feel different from everyone else too, I said. Because of the dairy thing? I nodded. It feels really weird to eat something different when everyone else gets to eat yummy stuff with milk and cheese in it. My mom says it'll get easier. Eli smiled a little. My mom says that too, about missing my dad. Oh my gosh, I said suddenly, horrified, because my being dairy-free felt like nothing compared to losing a parent. I know me being dairy-free is not as serious as... Eli shrugged. It's not like a contest, he said. He flipped the weed over in his hand. What's the hardest part about being dairy-free? Feeling left out of things, I replied. And other kids don't always get that I feel that way. They don't understand what it's like, so they'll accidentally say or do something that'll make me feel even worse. It was really cool when you brought in those dairy-free brownies because, for once, I wasn't different. Eli nodded. It's a huge bummer feeling different. Miss Lewis wants me to talk about all that with the whole class. Maybe I should. Or maybe I could just get a shirt that says, please remember that I can't eat dairy and that it makes me feel weird sometimes. Now Eli laughed at something I said. Yes, it happened. Eli and I were officially friends. Oh, that's so sweet. So that is the end of chapter 14. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. And thanks for watching. See you soon.